It seems that we live at times where great ideas are all around us. Even earlier today, we started hearing about augmented reality, virtual reality. So, in my opinion, we will have even more great ideas. I even bet 80% of people here think that they have a great idea. I live in Silicon Valley, where tons or even hundreds, thousands of apps launch every single week. Yet, 90% of them fail. Why so? Is it because they don't have enough money, they don't have enough of resources? Most of the times, they actually just don't know their users. Let me remind you how it used to be. You had an idea, you hired a developer, they start building it for you. Soon enough, you understand that you want to refine the idea, so you brought a product in. Later, you understand that you need to have a nice package, and obviously, you brought designers. So is it a recipe for success? Are you golden right now, and you are sure that everything's going to be fine? So you spend tons of time and tons of your resources building your application, launching it, and then giving it to your users, only to see them go like this. Why do I even need it? Why do I want it? Why you keep pushing this on me? I bet a lot of people been through the situation. At least I was. So is there a better way? It seems that a lot of corporations and companies, startups, understand right now that it's all about user. I keep hearing some buzzwords like do user-centered or user-focused design, or focus on a user and everything else will follow. So a lot of corporations start doing user research, they start launching beta version of their application, or they would invite focus groups to test it. It's all good, and thanks God they're doing this, but it's also very expensive and time-consuming. So let's imagine we live in a fairy tale world with unicorns, rainbows, but also in the world where everyone knows that their idea is good and worth something. What if I tell you that by using Google Design Sprint, you can actually take a step forward towards this beautiful future? Sounds cool, right? But how does it actually work? Google Design Sprint is 5 stages framework that use different methods to solve your problem. It allows you to answer a lot of critical business questions in very short time. Depending on your problem, you would use different settings, you would use different methods. I would treat sprints as just one big giant toolbox with a lot of tools, and you can just pick and choose which one works for you. So let's say you're a startup. If you're a startup, you probably would want to go through all of the stages, you would do a 5-day sprint, and most of the times you would want to find out the vision for your product or where you want to be in 1 year. But if you work in a big company or you work on one particular product, you might just want to improve something small, like, for example, sign-up experience. And then you might do a shorter sprint. But at the same time, we would still use all of the stages. So sprints actually consist from 2 parts. The 5 stages is one thing, but there are 2 things. The first one is planning, and the second one is running the sprint. And in my personal experience, planning for the sprint is often 70% of the job or even more. By the way, how you plan your sprint, you can expect the result, and you can expect the outcome. When you start planning your sprint, first of all, you need to understand what is your problem, what is your goal, what kind of questions you're trying to answer. It's easy just to use a modern technique or just because it's fun and it's nice, but we all want to use our time effectively. So you need to make sure that you have established really good sprint challenge for yourself and for your team. Once you have your challenge and your goal, It could be something, for example, I want to make sure that my users find my product very fast. Depending on your business, if it's online sales or it's retail, you would shape your sprint differently and you plan it differently. Once you have established your goal, you want to make sure that you use the perfect team. I don't know how many of you saw the movie Ocean's 11 with George Clooney. They're trying to rob a casino there, and everything gets in the way. Something coming up all the time, problems appear, but at the end, they're able to do their job. And why are they able to do it? Because every single person on their team had their own job. And that's what you want of a sprint. You want to have a perfect team. For your sprint, you usually want to have a decision maker who will be responsible for the direction, who will be responsible about next steps. You want to have designers or you want to have developers, people who will actually help you build your product. You also want to include sales if it's applicable to your product, because most of the time they talk to your customers and they know your customers better. Once you picked your perfect team, Ocean's team, what's next? You need to ensure that you have really good space. And conference rooms are usually very bad for sprints. You want to find big space, creative space, that would encourage people, that would make them excited about what they're going to do. And you want them to just have fun, because then it's going to help your product, it's going to help you at the end. So once you did your planning, you actually move to the second stage, when you need to run your sprint. And for both stages, for planning and for running, you need to make sure that you have one very important person, is a sprint master. The sprint master will be your magic guy. He will save you, he will have plan, and he will also run the sprint for you. And trust me, it's a golden resource. He will be helping you to create visual memory. He will be able to guide your team members through the whole process, but also he will ensure that everyone's time is used wisely. So let's look into typical sprint. Typical sprint consists from 5 stages. And the first one is understand. During understand stage, you're trying to establish the common knowledge, so-called shared brain. Because never assume that everyone on the same page. You have your Oceans team, and every team member brings their own perspective and their own expertise. So you want to make sure that you listen to them. You want to make sure that they've been heard. For example, you might want to invite the business people because they want to tell you what are their goals or where are they heading. You want to invite sales to share the customer's perspective. You want to invite tech people or eng people to share the technical constraints or even possibilities that are out there. We use a lot of different methods during this stage, and all of these methods help us to build the shared knowledge. My favorite one is lightning talks. So that's when you invite all of the people I just mentioned, and they give just very short 10 minutes presentation. We also do user interviews, because again, it's all about user, right? And one of my favorite methods is How My Tweets. How My Tweets is a very simple tool that allows you to transfer user pain points into opportunities. For example, you might hear a user say, it's very hard to remember passwords. I need to go to tons of different pages, and I need to enter this length of strings with very weird characters. So how might we, in that case, would be something like, how can we make sign-in experience seamless or easy? Or another example, you might hear your user say, it's so hard to add a second language. How do I do that? Those settings are so hidden, I always need to remember where to go to find them. In that case, how might be something like, How can we make language settings easily accessible? Or how can we make adding language easy? So you see, it's already removing this negativity from the problem for the user and transfer it into opportunity. And those opportunities, what we're aiming for, we want to generate as many solutions as possible. And we will move to the next stage once where we'll be generating. But before that, at the end of the understand stage, you and your teams need to decide on the deliverables, what you want to test with your users by the end. Because often enough, when we say, oh, I want to test my application with my users on Friday, designer thinks about the sequence of the screens. Sales thinks about the sale deck, or product manager thinks about the list of requirements. So you want to make sure that your team is on the same page, and you have a clear goal you're all working towards to. So let's move on to the next stage. And the next stage is sketch, or we often call it diverge, because during the diverge stage, we're trying to look into as many possible solutions as they exist. For example, you might do a competitive analysis, you might check your competition, you might check what is out there, what solutions, how other people already solve this problem. Because often enough, good ideas are actually not a new idea. And I'm not saying you should go and copy somebody's solution, but just look for inspiration. And inspiration could be anywhere. For generating solutions, we use, again, a lot of different methods and a lot of different techniques. One of my favorite ones is Crazy 8, and it's very fun. We ask people to generate 8 different solutions within 8 minutes. So yeah, 1 solution per minute. At this point, a lot of people got stressed during my sprints, because a lot of people started complaining, oh, I'm not a designer, or I cannot draw, I don't know what to do. It's not about that. Trust me, every single person can generate a really good solution by just using boxes, arrows, and text. And that's what we're looking for, solutions and ideas. We're not looking for the pixel-perfect sketch or pixel-perfect mocks and nice drawings, just a solution. Sometimes you just can write it down. So at this stage, we already have so many solutions that we need to know how to use them and how to prioritize or how to decide what we want to do. So we start using voting. And you will hear me repeating that voting not once, because it's a very powerful technique we use on almost every stage. Once you generated the Crazy 8 solution, each team member shares their solution, and they present what the ideas are, they explain them, and we give them 3 colorful dots that allows them to vote on ideas. And this way, we find out what is the most interesting part, where we want to concentrate our efforts, and what we want to test with our users on the 5th day. After we have voted and we have selected some directions or some ideas, we ask people to go into more details. And we ask them to create a solution sketch. Solution sketch is great because it allows everyone to express their own idea. It allows them to show how they think the problem should be solved and what is the best solution in their opinion. And again, similarly how with Crazy 8s, we would share a solution sketch and we would start voting. And then we move to the decide stage. So you have so many solutions, and usually 80% of them are great solutions. How do you decide? How do you decide what you want to test? Often enough, we have very strong characters during our team sprints, and of course, if you have a CEO in the room or you have a VP in the room, they would want to decide on their own. It usually does not work like that, though there is some methods called decision metrics or stakeholder voting, when the VP or CEO has just 1 extra vote. to make sure that we are going to the right direction. But most of the times, we used the method called dot voting, the one I referenced before. And similar with sketches, we give people 3 dots, and we allow them to vote on their favorite solution. Sometimes we alternate and we use heat map voting, because one idea might be great, but some particular feature or another idea might be even more interested. So we allow users to vote in this particular part. Because you might build the one great solution, but this one feature will bring the delight to the users. And we would want to test it out. So once you have decided with your team what you want to do, you start prototyping. And again, as I mentioned at the beginning, Sprint is just a toolbox. So you have as many methods as possible. And for prototype stage, we, again, have a lot of methods. We often start from the storyboard, because we want to make sure that everyone in the team agrees on what we want to prototype. And it might sound a little bit time-consuming, because we already have voted, we already generated so many solutions, and just give us a chance to do this. But it's really good to take a step back and align everyone again. And storyboards help with this. With prototypes, my main suggestion is just fake it. Don't try to make it perfect. Don't try to make it functional. Just want to have something good enough to test with the users. You just need to have their feedback. And you don't need to have fully functional prototype or fully functional product in order to do that. And the second advice I would have would be use everything you can. Just think outside the box, find any resources, any materials you can find. I remember during one of our previous sprint, we wanted to test the experience of customer going to the store and buying something at the counter. So we found card boxes. We built a kiosk, and of course it was in the store. Of course it was on the counter. But at the same time, it gave us a real enough experience for our users to test our scenario and to understand if our assumptions are good or bad. So once you have your prototype, you move to the most important stage, validate. And during validate stage, again, there are tons of different methods, but the most important thing is that depending on your objective, depending on the goal you have established at the beginning of sprints, you start testing and you start answering your questions. So if you're building a prototype of a product, you want to talk to your users. If you're trying to align on a vision and see if your stakeholders agree with you, do a stakeholder review. Or you might do a technical review and ask your engineers if it's even feasible, if you can build it, or how long it's going to take. The most important thing is that by the end of the sprint, you have a really good understanding of what your idea was. If it's something good, or you should just move along and start something new. I would say there is a better way. And I encourage to use design sprints for that. I encourage you to find solutions faster, to test your ideas faster, and invest in one that excites you, that are proven by the user that they are good. So I encourage you again, go and try one. And if you want to learn more about design sprints and have so-called step-by-step guide, I encourage you first join our workshop tomorrow, where we'll go into more technical details. And also, you can read the book by Jake Knapp, who started the design sprint technology in Google Ventures. It's available on Amazon. And it's pretty good and fun read. Thank you.
I'm sorry, Alena, but I've got to ask you how it's like to be on the cover of Vogue magazine.
I feel if I knew how it would feel to be on real cover of Vogue magazine, I would finally start following my own Instagram, but not the others.
All right. You look stunning, by the way. Thank you very much for your presentation and coming all the way from San Francisco.
Thanks.